Beast stared at the genetic readout in disbelief. It was her. After all this time, Jean Grey was alive. The Phoenix Saga, the sacrifice, it all felt like a terrible dream. Cyclops, as Cyclops, he had sensed something different about this Jean, a subtle shift in her energy signature. Now, the truth was undeniable. But joy quickly turned to unease. Beast couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Mister Sinister, as Mister Sinister, unbeknownst to the X-Men, a shadowy figure observed them from afar. Mister Sinister, a Master Geneticist with a sinister agenda, had been tracking Jean and Cyclops. He craved their combined genetic potential, the key to creating the ultimate mutant. The Jean Grey before the X-Men was not the real Jean, but a meticulously crafted clone. Sinister had implanted a psychic link within the clone, a dormant trigger waiting for the right moment. Mister Sinister as Mister Sinister. He watched with anticipation as the X-Men welcomed her back into the fold, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Sinister's plan was unfolding perfectly. He would use the clone to get close to Cyclops, to take what he needed, to set his plan in motion. The X-Men, blinded by relief and hope, embraced the familiar face of their beloved Jean. They pushed aside any lingering doubts, attributing them to the trauma of their past. But the truth, as always, was far more complicated and dangerous than they could have imagined. Sinister's lab was a testament to his twisted genius. Glowing cylinders housed genetic material. Twisted metal sculptures resembled grotesque anatomy lessons. In the center, a holographic display flickered with the genetic code of Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Mister Sinister, as Mister Sinister, he had been studying them for years, meticulously plotting his next move. The clone was his masterpiece. He had imbued her with memories, personality, and even a touch of Jean's own fiery spirit. But it was all a facade, a carefully constructed illusion designed to lure his prey into a false sense of security. He chuckled to himself, relishing the irony. The X-Men, champions of peace and understanding, were falling prey to his deception. Mister Sinister, as Mister Sinister, his fingers danced across the controls, activating the psychic trigger embedded within the clone. He watched through her eyes as her demeanor shifted. Confusion clouded her features, followed by a surge of raw power. The Goblin Queen was about to be unleashed. The X-Men remained oblivious to the danger brewing within their midst. They celebrated Jean's return, unaware that they were welcoming a wolf in sheep's clothing. Cyclops, his heart torn between grief and a flicker of hope, embraced the clone. He yearned to believe, to feel Jean's presence once more, but deep down a seed of doubt lingered, whispering warnings he couldn't ignore. The transformation was swift and brutal. The Jean clone writhed in agony, her cries echoing through the mansion. Her skin turned a sickly green, her once gentle eyes glowed with malevolent red energy. Horns sprouted from her forehead, a crown of bone signifying her transformation into the Goblin Queen, Cyclops as Cyclops. The X-Men, caught completely off guard, could only watch in horror. Their joy turned to terror as they realized the depth of Sinister's deception. This was not their Jean. This was something else entirely, twisted and corrupted by his sinister machinations. The Goblin Queen, fueled by Sinister's psychic manipulations and Jean's own latent power, turned on her supposed comrades. She lashed out with terrifying force, her telekinetic and telepathic abilities amplified to an unimaginable degree. The X-Men, despite their combined might, were no match for her raw power. Cyclops as Cyclops. Cyclops, his heart shattering at the sight of his beloved twisted into this monstrous form, refused to fight back. He clung to the belief that somewhere deep within the Goblin Queen, a flicker of Jean remained. He pleaded with her, his voice hoarse with anguish, desperate to reach the woman he loved, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The Goblin Queen, consumed by chaos, was beyond reason. Morph, ever the adaptable and resourceful member of the team, watched the unfolding chaos with growing concern. He knew something was terribly wrong. The power emanating from the Goblin Queen was staggering, but it felt off. It lacked the warmth, the compassion that always defined Jean Grey. Morph as Morph. He decided to investigate, using his shape-shifting abilities to slip away unnoticed. Morph infiltrated Sinister's network, his form flickering between security cameras, accessing files, and piecing together the truth. He discovered the clone, the manipulation, the horrific experiment that had unfolded right under their noses. He raced back to the mansion, his mind reeling from the revelation. The X-Men were in grave danger, but it was baby Nathan, Cyclops and Jean's son who was Sinister's true target. Armed with this knowledge, Morph knew he had to act fast. The fate of the X-Men and perhaps the world hung in the balance. Morph as Morph. The Goblin Queen, following Sinister's commands, snatched Nathan from his crib. She held him aloft, a cruel parody of a mother's love, her laughter echoing through the halls of the mansion. The X-Men were devastated. This wasn't just a battle, it was a nightmare come to life.